Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something that's frankly a revolutionary way to read the market. It's a method that promises to show you what's really going on behind those price charts, giving you a totally new way of looking at market movements. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Take a look at your trading screen. All those charts you rely on day in and day out, what if they're only telling you like half the story? I mean, think about it. Candlestick charts are amazing, right? We all use them, they show us price action, but they can also hide the real narrative, the story playing out just beneath the surface. And that story, well, it's being written by the institutional players, the so-called big money. All right, so let's start peeling back the layers on this hidden story. Let's really dig into what our traditional charts might be missing. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. Candlesticks, they give you a chapter. But to trade really effectively, you kind of need the whole book, don't you? It's all about moving from just a piece of the story to the bigger, more complete picture that something like market profile theory can give you. And if we want that bigger picture, there is one group we absolutely have to follow. You've heard the term, the smart money. This is where all the real clues are hiding. The key idea here is something called institutional accumulation. Now, that sounds a bit fancy, but all it means is that these large funds and banks, they're quietly buying or selling, building up their positions when the market looks like it's doing, well, nothing at all. They work in the quiet moments, getting ready for the noise. Okay, but that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If this is all happening quietly, behind the scenes, how on earth is a regular trader supposed to spot it before the big move has already happened? Well, the answer is actually found in a really powerful theory from Market Profile that explains the market's natural rhythm. You can think of it like a constant dance between two states, balance and imbalance. Everything, and I mean everything, kicks off with a state of balance. This is the foundation where all the major market moves are built. Now, a balance area, it probably just looks like a boring, sideways market on your chart. You know, the kind of choppy period most traders just tune out. But here's the secret. That's exactly where the institutional players are busy accumulating their positions. They're coiling the spring for the next big move. And after a period of balance, what always follows, you guessed it, imbalance. This is the moment all that quiet positioning has been building towards. The imbalance is that explosive breakout we're all looking for. It's the powerful, trending move that happens only after all that quiet positioning is done. All that pressure that was building up during the balance phase, it finally gets released. Okay, so we've got the theory down. Balance leads to imbalance. Cool. But how do we actually apply this? How can we see these balance areas taking shape in real time? Well, this is where a very clever tool comes into play. The solution is a set of really revolutionary color-coded zones that are designed to do just one thing: highlight these areas of institutional positioning right there on your chart. It basically makes the invisible visible. So there are three key zones you're going to want to watch for. The yellow zone often tips you off to the start of a consolidation. The blue zone usually highlights a more mature balance area where institutions are really heavily involved. And that purple zone, that can be the signal for the final phase, right before a major breakout.
You wouldn't face Jasprit Bumrah with a plastic bat. Yet thousands of traders enter India's derivatives market with zero.
Traders lose, not because they aren't smart, but because they chase candles and ignore what institutions are actually doing.
12-video e-course reveals how markets actually move through order flow and market profile. See the forces behind price, not just price itself.
Stop reacting to candles. Start reading institutional intent. Join the e-course now. 4,909 for lifetime access.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Am I audible? Great. So let's start this Monday 5 p.m. session. And the topic of today is again the microbalance tool, which we have recently added in the Vtrender chart section. So just a brief about what we want to see in the market profile chart. So what we are looking at is balance to imbalance and imbalance to balance. And this happens on all time frames. So how do we identify them and how do we set ourselves up? So what I have on the screen right now is the monthly report, which we do every at the end of every calendar month, where we mark out what the type of month, what type of profile did the monthly make, and what did we do in that particular month on a daily basis. So this is the September daily chart, and you can see how September was one way up in the first half. You can see how after a small 3-day balance, we started to form higher value on all days. Yes, we did have days of overlapping value, but at no point in time we made lower value. So we were trending higher in the first half, and this was 18th of September where we hit that highs of the month 25448. We stalled just below the July POC of 25452, and from there you can see how we reverse the probe to the downside. So this one an imbalance one to the upside, and this was the imbalance to the downside. So here you can see how we are forming lower VPOCs and lower value on all days, and the month ended with a 3-day balance. So it is easy for us to identify the balance to imbalance mode on the daily time frame. We see the value and accordingly look to trade them. So the same thing we do on the weekly time frame also, and then we cut it down to the daily and 30-minute order flow. So that is how we want to watch out how on which time frame is the activity changing from from being a buy side bias to a sell side bias, and from there we want to accordingly get in line with the particular initiative activity which has started. So this is how we use the monthly. We have a top to bottom approach at Vtrender. So we have a look at the monthly chart. We see what we have done on the monthly, and you can see how we have identified that the monthly profile was divided into two parts. First half rising from 2443 to 458, indicating a trend up profile, but the second half saw an equally big drop back to 24587. So we have a balanced structure for the month, and that is the reason we closed around the POC in the middle. POC is the point where you have the largest number of TPOs when we are talking about the spot chart. So we close around the middle of the profile. So that is what we have done. In fact, today what we did was we remained above this POC at the start of October, and we have gone on to tag this value area high. If it is not a surprise that 25097 is what the high in spot today is. So how do we get that? So because we are in previous value and previous structure was a balance. So because we were below above this POC, our target was this value area high. So to remain bullish, we need to stay above this value area high. So this is on the monthly time frame. We do the same on the weekly, daily also. So on the weekly also, we have a weekly report which goes out, which puts out all these levels and the hypos accordingly. So we have the monthly zone. We had 24744 as our rollover point, and 24897 is the level where we stalled on Friday. The spike high stalled right there. So this was an important reference for today. We needed to be above this for being bullish. So 24660 we took out right on the first day of October. So it was clear that the buyers are taking control, and one by one we have taken out all these three important references of the monthly time frame. So it is so now let us have a quick look at the weekly profile. The same thing we see what we have done on the weekly time frame. This is last week's report, and you can see how we started with probing lower. We left this failed auction on Monday last week, and this was telling us it wants to go down, and we hit the 180 target, but this look down below previous lows was halted, and we made this, it was struggling to go lower. This seaside stalled the upside, and we had a seaside on Tuesday which stalled the downside. We did make a marginal new low in the K period on Tuesday, but that was immediately rejected. giving rise to this, the failure of the sellers saw the buyers coming in. We got an initiative buying tail and we got this extension handle. And it was not a surprise that it came at the start of a new month. So here you can see how we took out this 24660 POC, and we also went on to close above the rollover point. And the rollover point is where we got a buying tail on Friday. So one by one, when you're leaving buy side references on the monthly levels, you know that the buyer is in control, and that is what has happened. And we continue to probe higher today. So this is as far as the monthly and weekly report and the levels go. This is how we figure out. And then we also have the daily reports, which gives us the daily uh, levels. But today's topic is not about these. These anyways keep getting covered in the forum. So today we want to talk about micro balances. What is a micro balance? What is the use of it, and how do we trade it? Because micro balances are balances which are formed on the shorter time frame. So 30 minutes we still have the VWAP and the POC, which tells us how a 30-minute TPO is placed compared to the previous TPO. But how do we get to know in the shorter time frame? Because even when you know the bias is on the upside, the buyer is in control, lot of times during the day you see the market is not doing anything, it is silent, so it's in a narrow range. So even though you know that market is bullish, when is that you will get a re-entry into the trend? So all these things are simplified by using micro balances. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run through the Nifty Futures micro balance from 1st of October and see what were the micro balances we got and how the quality of the micro balances differ. And then what we'll do is, along with the micro balance, we'll add the order flow and we'll see how the move which got triggered in a micro balance was also supported in an order flow, and how you can be able to trade them and accordingly set targets for yourself. So let's start with the 1st of October, and you can see this yellow box is where you are getting the first micro balance of the month of the October. So what is the range? The range is 72 points, and you also have a sign of the volumes which are accumulated in that micro balance. So what is the meaning of this? This means the buyers and sellers are in agreement with this zone being a balance. So the buyers were defending this and the sellers were holding on to this upper micro balance. But then inside the micro balance, what is the story which we are getting? You can see how we have the days VWAP and we have been above the days VWAP for most part. And then at this range, at this uh, top end of the micro balance, we get an IB signal. So you know that already this micro balance is giving a sign that it wants to break out on the upside. And when does that breakout happen? That breakout happen with this green bar. I'll just get the right time. So this is the bar 11:12 on 1st of October is where this micro balance breaks out of this with a green bar. It is not given as an IB3, but still nonetheless it is given as a sign that it wants to move away from this balance to an imbalance. So we already had this intent seen by that IB3 bar at the top end of the micro balance. So this is how you need to figure out. So how do you trade this? So what happens? You have this upper range. We have this line. So what I'll do is I'll use this to mark the range of this micro balance. So 24820 roughly is the upper range of the micro balance, and 24750 is the lower end. So you can see how the range is 70 points. So what we do, once we get this green bar closing about 24820, you know that you are going long for a 72 point upside. So 24820 plus 72 would be 24892. So 24892 would be your first target. So this would be our first target. So what the microbalance is giving us a breakout signal, and it is breaking out on the upside. We already have an IB3 which is there. This green bar is broken out. So once we close above this 24820, it is a buy signal, and the stop loss would be this 24750. Target one would be 24890, which got hit. Once you hit the target one, you will trail the stop loss to cost, and then you look for target two, which would be another 70 points from this 24890, which would be 24960, which is where we made the highs on that day. So this is what you get when you look at the micro balance, and when you know the balance is turning to an imbalance on the shorter time frame. What it does is it gives you a early entry into the main trend. This is valid for all instrument, so you can use this on futures, you can use this on options. I'll come to that, how you can use a combination 3 window mode, where you have a look at the futures and you also have a look at the uh, in the money call and put, so that you don't have to trade the option using the futures. You can trade the option using the micro balance which you're getting in the option itself. I'll come to that in a bit. So let us just first understand how do we trade the micro balance, and then we will look at the setups, and we will also look at examples which came in today. We'll use the latest data to see what were the uh, uh, trades which we were getting today. So this was the first micro balance of the year, and this was a yellow one. So we have three color codes for the micro balances. The purple one is the best, that is telling us that the balance is on for a longer time, and it has been in a range for a longer period of time with more volumes. So the more the coil, the bigger the breakout can be. So the more it is in balance, when it moves into an imbalance, you can expect a bigger range. The shorter the balance, the range would be a smaller one when it moves into an imbalance. So that is the reason we have these three color codes: purple, blue, and yellow. Purple is the best, blue is the better one, and yellow is our bread and butter, because it gives us the small moves on a everyday daily basis. So you can see how this yellow imbalance on the first gave us the respective target one and target two, and then what happened, we got a holiday in between, and after the holiday we opened, it was an open auction in range. We took support at previous day's VWAP, and what we see is a blue box micro balance. So this was a larger scale micro balance, larger time, and then you can see the range and the volumes were higher than what we saw in that yellow box. So what happened here, you can see it made an attempt to move away, but it did not stay above this. Still, the trigger did not hit the stop loss, but we did not get any IB3 or continuous green bars which we saw in the first micro balance. So it continued to be in this micro balance. This was still a reference, and what it did was it formed a smaller yellow colored balance, micro balance over here in the afternoon. So you can see how you can use this breakout from this micro balance, and you can also connect this larger micro balance to this, because this micro balance has taken support at previous day's VWAP, and this VWAP was an important reference. So when you know the buyer are holding this, and now the buyers tried to attempt higher, they could not, but still they held VWAP all day, and at no point of time you went to the lower end of this micro balance. That itself is a hint that the buyers are in control. And once here you get this micro balance and you get this green bar which is in the K period, you know that now you are getting a move on the upside. In fact, you can also look at the 80-point range from this range. This was, I think, at 24950, and the stop loss was at 24880. So you had an 80-point range, and you can look from 24950, 80 points upside is 25030. We made a high of 25020 on Friday, and then today at the open we hit that 2530 level. So you can see how this micro balance, I'm taking the bigger one, not the smaller one, also came in picture and it gave us the first target. So this was, and you could have still traded this small micro balance also. You can see even this micro balance, the lower end did not get hit after it broke out, and this was a smaller one, 33 point. So 33 point to the upside was the first target, 66 point was the second target. So both of them obviously got hit, and we did get some uh, bonus also from there. So what I'm going to do now is give you an example of what we saw today. Today we opened higher, and another important cue which you will get, these micro balances have given us a breakout. They have also given us the respective targets, but then the level from where the micro balance has broken out, that will continue to be an important reference. So you can see how the dip which we saw in the morning today held above this micro balance breakout. So this is telling us that the buyer are still in control. And once we got back above VWAP, although we did not get any micro balance to trade at the open, it was still a move to the upside. And then what we saw at the close, we are seeing this another micro balance forming. So for tomorrow, what would be our reference? 25 200 roughly on the upside and 25 150 on the downside. You have a 40-point range as a micro balance, and we will want a break away from this micro balance. Once you get that break away, the other end of the micro balance would be your stop loss, and you will have targets as per the range in the direction of the breakout. So that is how we need to trade these micro balances. So how do you make most use of it? So let us see, in case you are an option trader and you want to make use of the micro balances, you get them on the option chart also. So firstly, what I'll do is I'll go to the two window mode. We'll first have the micro balance on our left, the line chart on the left, and the order flow on the right. So we had identified two micro balances from the 1st of October. So let us just check out both these micro balances and compare it with what happened in the order flow. So this is the first micro balance which we saw, 24820, which we spoke. This was broken on the 1st of October at 11:15. So what I'm going to do, I'll go to the order flow chart of that particular day and that particular time so that we can confirm on the same. So you can see how we need to combine the order flow with the micro balance breakout. So this is that bar. To be precise, this is that bar which broke above the 24820. So you know, before this we have got an IB3. So in the order flow, it was already showing us an IB3 above the VWAP. So this already is a buy signal if you are looking at just the order flow. And when in the micro balance also, it gives you a confirmation that is moving away from this micro balance to an imbalance. You know that you can look for this is a higher probability trade. So you would not want to miss it. So you can see how once you take this out, how this entry point has become your reference, and this 24824 has not been tagged after that day. This was at 11:12 on first, and this has become an NPOC. That means it has not been tagged. So your entry point into this imbalance, if you would have entered here, you could have still held on to some long position with big profit, because you're almost 250 points away from this entry. So the order flow will give you that confirmation. You've got an IB3, you've got this green bar once you move away from this micro balance, and you also have another important market profile reference, which is the IBH. This yellow dotted line is the IBH. So when you're getting an imbalance move, micro balance confirmation at the IBH, that also sets you up for the 2IB target of that day. So you can see how so many things are adding up here, and all this gives you a good entry, good probability trade. and you get into the imbalance. Yes, it is happening on the shorter time frame, but still you get into a good trade, and your stop loss, once you hit the first target, your stop loss is not even hit so far, and you've continued to gain in on the upside. So this is what the micro balance breakout gives us. It gives us the entry in the shortest time frame. So you get a very close entry when the imbalance is starting. And if the small imbalance, the small shorter time frame imbalance which we are seeing on the 3 minute carries forward to the 30 minutes in the daily time frame, what you have taken, when you have taken an entry on the first 3 minute imbalance, that can fetch you a huge up move or a down move. So this is a classic example of how this went on to this is gone on to give us you almost 250 points of profit, and the stop loss is at cost now. So this was the first micro balance which we saw, and we can see how the order flow is confirmed that. Let us now move on to the second one, which came on third. So we will also discuss about how it looked as if it was giving a breakout, but it failed. So we will go to that part in the order flow. 3rd of October and same time. So this was 24960, and you can see how at 12 o'clock, around 12 o'clock, just before the G period, is where we got that first. So this was the case. So here again, this was the case where we saw the bar which closed above this micro balance. But what did we see here? You can see how the POC shifted to the top in both these bars. And this 24965 was a failed auction in Nifty Futures. We had identified this reference, and we knew this was going to be a swing level for us to be aware about. So when you are looking at RS bars over here and the order flow is showing you zeros on the buy side, you know that the buyers are still not adding up here. They have just made an attempt, but they're not adding up. They will need some more power for the upside. And this failed auction is being tested. So the bias is definitely to the upside, but very clearly the order flow is showing us this is also the initial balance high. So you can see how when you're not getting any volumes on the buy side, you will definitely not have that confidence to go long. You need, and what we saw in the previous micro balance breakout was a good green bar. POC was in the middle, and that entry point, which was 24823, never got tagged. But here you can see how the 24960 immediately was broken. So this is how the order flow will support the micro balance levels. And you can see immediately we came back lower, tested VWAP, but the VWAP was holding. And this is where we formed this second micro balance of the day. So this was around 24950, and the micro balance low was 24920. So let us see what happened. This was at the K period 236 bar. So let's move on to the 236 bar. We are back into the micro balance range, and we will wait for the breakout to come again, which happened late in the day. You did get two IS 3s inside this micro balance, but you can see how those were not able to take off the VWAP also. So that is telling you that the quality of the selling which is coming in is not that good, because we are staying above VWAP. So when that happens, K period can give you a move. And in fact, all of us in the VMR were ready for a spike into the close. See, this is a classic case of supply missing at VWAP. And this was the micro balance low. This is that bar. So the micro balance, not the breakout of micro balance, not only gives you a trade, but what is happening inside the micro balance also gives you a story. So around the micro balance lows, if you are not getting supply, you know that the buyers are in control. So you can see very clearly how you have got zeros on the sell side. What we saw on the buy side at 24,965, when we made an attempt to move higher, we are seeing the reverse here. So that is the reason once it came back to this micro balance high, it gave a big breakout. and that was where we got a move. So this is that bar which broke above this 24955. So let us mark that and see. So you can see this bar is the one. So once you break out from this, your microbalance low becomes the reference. So 24950 is where the POC of this is. This is your entry point. And you can see how you got a good green bar which has closed well above the IBH. So with this 24950 as your reference, you can look for upside. You have a 33-point range to start with. You also have a 80-point range over here. So this gave you both those targets. And you can see very clearly how this continued to go up. It stalled at the big round number of 25,000 for a bit, but at no point of time it came back below this uh, VPOC. In fact, this VPOC is where we took support today. You can see how what I was telling, not just the micro balance, but the place from where we have broken out, that also leaves an important cue. So this POC was at 24974, and we will see what happened at the open today in the order flow. So you can see how that was defended, and we went on to make that 25,020 into the close, these highs. And this, the MB target was achieved. So this is how you want to trade these setups. So now how do we look at the options and the futures both? So we have a good provision for that. We have this 3-window mode. So what I have done in this 3-window mode is I have divided the screen into 3 parts. The first part I have is Nifty Futures, the October series, and then the second part is the call. 24,900 call is what I was trading into the close. So I have that in my second window, and I have 25,200 put in the third window. So what we saw today, the only micro balance we saw in Nifty Futures today was this one. But in the options, we saw, so this was the only micro balance which we saw in Nifty Futures. And this came at the fag end of the day. But in options, we had another micro balance which gave us a good move away. So you can see, I'm just showing you the call option first. You can see this micro balance in the afternoon, which we did not get in the futures, but we got in the call. And we had a similar micro balance being formed in the put also. So you can see how these are giving you such aligned confirmations that you know that yes, this is another high probability trade which you are getting in, because the micro balance low is being broken in the put. It is going lower. You can see IS signals inside the micro balance, and in the call you're seeing an IB3 at the micro balance high and a breakout. So this is how you need to look at these micro balances being formed. And this call was well above the VWAP, and this put was below the VWAP. So you can add these cues along with the micro balances. You know the move. We have an A period buying tail today, so we have to be bullish. We need to look for more upside. But then when the call is started to stall like this, you have to be patient. You have to wait for a micro balance breakout, and once this breaks out, you have a good move here. And with this as your stop loss, you look at target 1 and target 2 as your objectives, and then you trail to cost. Same thing here. If you're an option seller, this was a very good case where you could have sold this put, and you can see how it went on to give us a fast move lower. I'll just have these line charts with the order flow. So I have the 24,700 call on the left, and we will look at what the order flow showed us when the micro balance broke out from here. So this is where the first micro balance came in, and you can see this bar is where the micro balance broke out. This is at 12:45, just when the G period was getting over. So let's move on to the order flow chart of that time. and see so the high of this micro balance is at 334. So you can see how we have stalling there. This is the G period high, and as you move forward, at the close of the G period is where the lower end of the micro balance is 308. So 308 and 334 is what you want to mark. I'll just so 334 on the upside and 308 on the downside. So this is where the micro balance was forming, and here at the close of the G period, you have seen this bar closing above this micro balance, and you see an immediate follow up to that. So this is telling you that yes, this is moving into an imbalance. So you need to go long at around this 334 level, and your stop loss would be 308. So 334 minus 308 is 26 points. So 26 points to the upside. You have this range also mentioned here, 26. So 360 would be your first target, and over that 386 would be your second target. So you can see how well the order flow also confirmed, and at no point of time, we saw that in the earlier example also, you can see how this POC was formed at 335, which was the entry point here, and this was not tagged into the close. And this is how you need to be aware about and trade these micro balances. You will get lot of opportunities on the shorter time frame, and you see what happened when you hit the first target of 360. You got an IB3. So you not only get to part book your profits, you can also trail your stop loss, not to cost but to this POC before the, because you've got fresh data here. So this 350 becomes your trailing stop loss, and it goes on to hit your second target of 386 with this big green bar. And when you are getting a big green bar, you can keep trailing your stop loss to the POC of the bar below, before it. So this becomes your trailing stop loss, and you can see how much you want to ride it. And this 418, if you are aware about the higher time frame references, that is what when we started the session today, we were discussing how we look at the daily chart, the weekly chart. We mark out the bigger objectives used on that, based on that, and we may try to make an entry on the shorter time frame. So this 418 is where the POS VWAP of 25th of September was, and that is a crucial level, crucial day. So when it is testing that level, you know that this is an important zone. And here when you see these zeros on the buy side, this is still a good, very good profitable trade. 334 was the entry, and you have gone on to make 418. So you would then become little circumspect, and you get little more aggressive. Either you trail your stop loss to this 400 or to this POC of 383, because you are seeing that one big objective is met. But if it continues to be a trend day and we get new highs in the into the close, you have a slightly tighter stop loss. But you can see how that marked the close and high of the day, and we went on to come back lower. So again, in this close, what we have done now is we have formed another micro balance of 39 point range. So the low of this micro balance is at this 370 368 level, and the high is around 409. So tomorrow what we want to do, we want to see a breakout either above 410 or below 360. If this comes below 360, this 334 becomes our support and objective. Why? Because we have seen a micro balance breakout at that level. So this becomes our support. So micro balances not only give you setups which you can trade with good risk early entry into the trend, but they also serve as future references which you can wait. So tomorrow, if we are getting a dip at this level, and in the order flow you're getting an RB plus IB, you don't need to wait for a fresh micro balance to give you an entry. You can, with this as your stop loss, you can take a low risk entry into the main trend, which is to the upside from the start of October. So this is the example of the call. Let us now have a look at the example of the put. So as I mentioned, you can see we have got multiple IS signals in the order flow in the put, and we have been below VWAP. So we were in a downtrend. But then this microbalance formed at the same time where we saw the microbalance in the call. We have expiry tomorrow. So there will be phases where the writers are getting in and they form their zones. So this was the classic case where we saw these microbalance forming in the call and the put. That was telling us that the writers were trying to accumulate and form a range. But then when this broke out, you know that these writers have failed and they will have to change, uh, adjust their inventory, and which is what happened. So let us see this example. We have already seen how the call gave us a breakout. Let us see the example in the put side now. So this is the 25-100 put, and this microbalance low is around 96. So let's see which was the bar on the order flow where we broke that 96 level, and this was also around the 12:45 time. And you can see how inside this microbalance we already have this IS3. You have an IS3, you are below VWAP, it is trending down. We are making lower lows on the 30 minutes. So we are waiting for an entry into the shorter time frame imbalance. So which happened in this bar 12:45 when we broke below this 96 level. So once you break below the 96, you're looking for a 20-point drop as your first target. Your stop loss is 21 points to the upside. So 96 plus 21 would be my stop loss, which is around this 118 in POC. And then I will book profits at the first target and trail my stop loss to cost. So 96 minus 21, 75 would be my first target. You can see how this was hit in this bar. And from here, if you want to be aggressive, you can have the stop loss for your rest of the position at this NPOC of 84. 96, remember, was our entry. So let's just see what we saw the POC shift lower, but at no point of time these NPOCs got tagged, and we went on to hit the target 2 of that microbalance and make new lows for the day. And again we saw the POC shift lower. This POC shifting lower was telling us that we need to come out of shorts, and that is the reason it gave us a bounce back to this higher POC. And this is what has happened now. We have formed this microbalance in this put, which will be the zone to watch tomorrow. And this microbalance high is around the VWAP. So that is why it becomes more interesting, because if you get a breakout from that microbalance high, it also breaks the VWAP of the day, and then you can look for some short covering with this the previous microbalance low of 96 being a target 1. So what we did into the close was it did look like it was giving a breakout, which we did not see in the call. But what we saw, this breakout was again shown by reversed by a IB3 into the close. So we did get some downside from here. 48 was the level we closed around the breakdown itself, but then it is still not given us any targets. So this is anyways almost in the money put now. So it will not be doing much tomorrow because we are already near 2500 in spot. 25097 I mentioned is the value area high of the last month of September. That is where we have stalled. So if we get above that tomorrow at the open, then you can see more writing coming in, and you can see this IB3, the closing IB3 failing, and this continuing to drop. So this is how we can use the order flow and the micro balances together, and just a quick look at what the Bank Nifty line chart is shown. You can see how this blue microbalance in Bank Nifty, it gave us a breakout here, and you can see this is a 89-point range. So with this as your stop loss, you look for multiple targets on the upside, and you can see how this blue breakout, it did take time, but it has moved in the right direction. And then again, what we saw was a breakout from this, but then that culminated in another small balance being formed. So what you do, you have broken out from this, so you will have this as your stop loss. But when you see this fresh micro balance forming, you have this micro balance low as your trailing stop loss for the longs which you have carried here. So we had seen a similar micro balance uh, giving a reversal to the downside last week. It did not break the micro balance low, so per se the trade was still on. But what it did help us understand is, because of this micro balance we could take a smaller exit, and because it broke below, we got a short side trade, and we went on to achieve the targets of that micro balance. And here you see, when this broke out with this green bar, it was very clear that it is going for this 73 point and 146 point range to the upside. So this will get confirmed in the order flow as I showed just now. You just need to shift on to the 2 window mode and have the order flow marked. So what we have done in Bank Nifty, we have closed in a 80-point micro balance. So a breakout above this high, you can look for 80 and 160 point on the upside, and vice versa on the downside. So yes, when you're breaking lower, because the main trend is on the upside, you will not blindly hold on to the target one. You will watch what order flow is doing at VWAP. If it breaks VWAP with an IS3, you know that this is going for the second target. So those are things which you need to be aware about what is happening on the higher time frame, and you need to be aware these micro balances are only giving us the entry on the shorter time frame. So this is giving us a quicker entry with a smaller stop loss. So if it goes on to extend in the higher time frame, you have got a multi-bagger with a very small risk, and which you can hold on to for a longer period of time, and accordingly no, not have that FOMO and get into other random trades. So that is it for today from my side, guys. We have the expiry tomorrow, and this balance to imbalance and imbalance to balance works on all time frame, all instruments. We showed how it works on the options and the futures. So there is no reason, and in fact, market profile, the structure of market profile is in such a way that we want to identify when we are in an imbalance and when we are in a balance. How do we do that? We see how value is being formed. If value is not overlapping and it is continuously forming higher, you know we are in an uptrend. Similarly here, if the micro balances which are forming on the upside, and we are getting more upside breakouts in the micro balances, you know that the buyer is in control. So that is it for today, guys. From my side, we have the expiry tomorrow, and we have things all spiced up. We have a micro balance both in Nifty as well as Bank Nifty futures. So tomorrow, once we open, if we are getting a move away from the latest micro balance, we need to be ready to take a trade. On the other hand, tomorrow being an expiry, there is a very good chance that the writers may take control. So when that is happening, you will see a bigger micro balance forming where it keeps expanding. And in the afternoon, if we see some writers may get hit, we will see another micro balance give us a breakout or a breakdown. And that will be the time where we can get into a low risk, high reward trade. So these micro balances are very important, and you need to be aware about it. We have the color codes for that, and it is not that the breakout from the micro balance, but the micro balance inside the micro balance, what is happening. So for example, in this Bank Nifty, you can see this IB3 at the lower end of the microbalance, and this IB3 is closed above VWAP, and after this we have remained above VWAP. So these are very important cues which you get in the microbalance, and you're ready that this microbalance has got more chance of giving a break on the upside. So that is it for today, guys. All the best for tomorrow's expiry. And if you have any queries, please do message me on X. My ID is at Uttam Goel. You can also mail us at support@vtrender.com, and you will we'll be happy to answer your queries. So let's see how tomorrow's expiry shapes up. The October month has started on a very bullish note, and we have it is a festival filled month. So let's see how this goes, and let's keep trading as per the tools and making most of it. Thank you for joining in, guys, and let's get back on Thursday this week. All the best for tomorrow's expiry, and have a great evening.